Welcome to the Divorce Talk with Twyla Show, where we talk all things divorce, and you will be inspired, informed, encouraged, and empowered. Now, let's welcome our host, Twyla M. Marks, the divorce recovery expert. She is Coach Twyla, the Get Your Happy Back Divorce Coach.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Divorce Talk with Twyla show on tonight. And listen, I'm super duper excited. First off, I am Twyla M. Marks, the divorce recovery expert, aka Coach Twyla, the Get Your Happy Back Divorce Coach. And so you are going to love this show on tonight. Listen, it's the last episode of Bonus Mom, Bonus Dad, the series part 3. So for the last 2 weeks, I've had some amazing expert guests join me live in action on the show. And my God, it's been amazing. They've told their stories as it relates to blended families. You know, in today's society, a lot of people, unfortunately, I'm in that number as well, have experienced divorce. And you bring in children from that previous marriage, previous relationship, whatever the case may be. And so what do you call yourself? What do you call the children? Is it stepmom, stepdad, stepchildren? What is it? And so me personally, I've told my story. That did not occur in my household, but we had a kind of a different situation going on. But tonight, listen, my guest tonight is Miss Umeka Wright, and she goes by Blended and Loving It. And I love that. And so I found her on social media when I did a little search for blended families. And listen, she has an amazing, powerful story. And I believe that you're going to gain a lot of good insight as it relates to how she and her household operates as it relates to blended families. So without further ado, let me just welcome Miss Umeka Wright to the Divorce Talk with Twyla show. Hello. Yes, I'm glad you're here. Welcome, Umeka, to the show. Thank you so much for being here with me on tonight. And so if you would just introduce yourself. The people don't know who you are. I know who you are because we've had a conversation. It was like we knew each other, like it always is for every guest that comes on the Divorce Talk with Twyla. But why don't you just introduce yourself and we'll just dive right on into our conversation on tonight.
Absolutely. I am Umeka Wright, as you stated, with Blended and Loving It. We've been married for 16 years.
How many years? It kind of went out.
16 years.
16, okay.
Have 6 children. Going back in, 2006. It was different. He brought 2, and then ultimately we had 2 together.
Yes.
So we have been married for quite some time. And I came up with Blended and Loving It. In the beginning, I was not looking at that. I started out, he had children. My goal was to, when I divorced from my previous husband, I was like, I'm not trying to date anybody with no kids, And that was just me. But I had kids myself. So here I am putting myself in a box. And he kept pursuing me. And I'm like, this man got 2 kids. I'm really not interested. And now, mind you, I have 2 kids too.
Yeah.
But I was actually blocking my own blessing. So it was actually a blessing. We have been married for 16 years, and Blended and Loving It came about because that was just a way for me to create my own space and to write my own story. Because as you know, in blended families, everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
And people want to give you their advice, but most of the time that advice will not work in your household. Some might, but none of it. Yeah.
Amen. Let's say that again. Now, it's not a cookie cutter situation, folks. What works in your household may not work in mine and vice versa. So you've got to do what works for you, right? And your family.
Absolutely.
So y'all been married 16 years. Y'all have 6 children together as a whole family, and it's blended. So how old were the children when y'all got married? Were they all minors? Were some adults? Because that's a different dynamic too, right?
It really is. Yes, everyone was minors. The oldest was 7, getting ready to turn 8, somewhere
Okay.
around there. So they are stair steps. So right now they are 23, 22, 18. One just turned 18. So the two 18-year-olds are about 6 months apart. And then we have a 15-year-old and a 4-year-old. That 4-year-old just
Wow, that's a big gap, girl.
we did not plan it that way. We had our own plan. I was like, okay, we're gonna have another baby and we gotta have it within this time frame. God was like, no, you're not. You're gonna have this baby when you turn 40. And lo and behold, but surprisingly, after so many years, you would think that we would have already jailed, but he actually, that little one brought us even closer together, because he don't understand who got different mamas and different daddies. He's like, these are my siblings.
Right.
So that little one actually really did help he's the glue, I would say.
He's the glue of the family. Oh, that's so sweet. I love it. I love it. So, how is the relationship between all the siblings? Do
And
they
I
all
think
get along?
they do. They get along, especially growing up together, being so young. The two 18-year-olds, they were like 2, when we got together. So everyone has pretty much grown up together. My husband had a different situation. Of course, I had custody of my 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
He had custody of only one. When they divorced, the mom took the girl, he took the boy.
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest son, we raised him in the household, and he went with mom every other weekend, and that's what we did also with the girl. So I would say they get along really well as siblings because they don't know anything else. We don't use
Mm-hmm.
the term, "Oh, that's my stepsister" or "my
Yeah.
stepbrother." We are family. It's nothing step about what we are. And when we get on this side, and I always say on this side of the door, this is our home, and we do things a certain way in our home. Now, you may do something different, at your other house, but when you're here, this is what we do.
Amen. I love that. So it's no stepsister, stepbrother. That's my sister. That's my brother.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And that was the same situation I had in my household. I love, love, love that. So, when we're talking about your personal story, your personal background, and I know you said you created Blended and Loving It for your personal space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has turned out to be you're a blogger now, right? You blog about specifically about blended families, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it came to me. I was a stay-at-home mom at some time, and I always tell my husband, I said, sometimes, as a stay-at-home mom, you need a hobby or you need something, because your mind will just be the devil's playground, and it's just running and running. And I would just find myself consumed with some of the things that we were going through in our blended family. And I say, you know what? I got to find a way to get this out, like to release and get this off of me. And so I started out anonymous at first, just kind of because I didn't want to rock the boat, I guess. You don't want to offend anyone. But as time went on, and my girlfriend was like, it's your story. You can tell whatever you want to tell.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, I still try to make sure that I'm respectful, because regardless of how I feel about the kids' other parents, they're still their parents. And I still need to be respectful of that. So I try to make sure that I choose my words wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that don't always happen. And it is what it is. But, I use that space just to share my journey, because I know others are going through it. And I feel like when we first married, it wasn't as many people, in blended families. Now it just seemed like it's the new norm,
It is. And that was one of the reasons why I did this series, because it's a lot of people's reality. So many divorces have occurred, unfortunately, over the last 5-6 years, and even through the pandemic, way more.
Absolutely.
And so you have parents or families that are blended. And so, did you all have a conversation? I know a previous guest was on, and they had actually a conversation and with everyone involved about what do we call each other, and or did it just happen? Or was it understood that's what it was going to be? How did they know?
We kind of let them form their titles the way they wanted to form the titles. We didn't want to press the issue of this is what you call me. The only thing we told them is that you cannot call us by our first names. So if you want to call me Miss Umeka, you can do that. You want to give me a nickname, you can do that. But you cannot call me Umeka, as a child. My husband was raised, by his grandfather. So and my parents taught me as well, you just Miss or Mr. to put a title on it. And I believe just with the kids being so young, they just kind of did what works for them. So it's not stepmom. I mean, I'm mama, he's dad, The other parents had a problem with that. And I always try to.
I was getting ready to ask you that. What do they call the biological?
Same thing, mama and daddy. The exact same thing. And it's no different. And others understand. Like if they're saying, if we're in the same location, it's hey mama. And I say hey back. So they know who is who. And I never try to make it, I have biological children, so I'm not trying to take anyone else's children. But I'm not going to tell you, no, you can't call me that. But if that's what you're comfortable with, I'm okay with it. Yes. Now, I have a biological son one of the 18-year-olds, and he now have started, I believe, maybe like 3 years ago, started calling my husband Ballhead. So he's just kind of giving him a nickname. But, when people who is that? He's like, oh, that's my stepdad. He will break it down for him. Yeah. And if people, if their friends or peers ask, they'll be like, oh, that's my stepmom, my stepdad. It's fine.
Yeah. But they don't call you that to your face. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. I love it. So Umeka, when the kids are together, or do y'all split holidays, or how does that work? Because I mean, you have a big family.
We used to split holidays. Now everyone, the ones that we blended together, they're adults, pretty much. We got 3 in college and 1 more getting ready to go off to college next year.
Wow.
Yeah. So the 2 that'll remain in the household, those are the 2 that we had together. But we used to split holidays, and now, and they would go every other weekend. They would stay with one parent, the 30 days of the summer, then go with the other parent. We were strictly just by the book, and just try to do what works best for the kids.
Yes. Love it. Absolutely. By the book sometimes is the best way to do it. So there's no confusion.
Right.
Yes. It's that traditional visitation schedule that goes on.
We tried the other stuff, and it didn't work for us, but it did work for my ex-husband and myself with our son. So that was fine. So every relationship was different, and we just had to treat it as such for our own community.
Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you this, going back to when this first happened, you guys were blended and, had the children. What did you have some outside sources telling you different things? And I mean, you mentioned you had people all in your ear. I mean, I'm just curious, and we might have some listeners and viewers tonight listening and watching the show. Like, that is exactly where I am. Everybody telling me what to do, and they're not in my household.
Absolutely. You always have people tell you how they would handle things or what they would do, and they are not putting on them shoes every day, or making it seem like it's not that big of a deal. And I feel like when we first started this process, because you have to remember, it's not just the 2 of us that's blending and we're blending our families. Right. You're also bringing in ex-in-laws, other family members, parents, other grandparents. And you know how grandparents are about their babies.
Yes.
Now you know something about this random lady around or this random man around. And so what we had to do was just block out the outside noise and all that other stuff. We did not invite that into our household. We decided that we're going to do, what worked for us. And it may not be pleasing to other people, but if you wasn't mom, dad, bio mom, by the bonus parents, you really didn't have a say in what took place in our household and with those kids.
Wow. I love it. So it was just the parents. Yeah, I love that because that's the people that's going to be in their, I wouldn't say in their lives, but around them the most.
Yes, absolutely. And if the grandparents had anything to do with it, then you talk to your son or your daughter, not the people who came into it. Because it just gets messy. It just gets so many messy with so many hands in the pot and so many people, especially with us. It's a lot of us, and it gets messy.
Wow, wow, wow. My. So you are a best-selling author. You've written a book entitled Blended and Loving It 30-Day Devotional,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So what is that all about?
Again, that was my safe haven because I remember just being maybe 5 years into the marriage and saying to my mom, like, I mean, we've been married 5 years. Why is it still drama? Why is it still this way? And she was like, 5 years is not a long time. And I'm like, that's it is. Especially to think that we're going through the same thing over and over. And at what point do you say, I'm tired? Because at that point, I was tired. But being a believer, that's who got me through this. And I turned to him and my husband. We prayed. We prayed for, our exes, prayed for children. And I felt like, I was like, you know what? It's so many books out here because I can't tell you how to successfully have a blended family because that looks different for everybody. But what I can do is give you the tools, which is if you are a believer, turn to Christ. And that's what our devotional is about. It's encouraging, and it also give you a little, some little stories and some tips, but more so some prayers just to help you get through what you're going through. Because even the families that wear the matching t-shirts and they go on vacations together. Sometimes personalities still may clash or opinions may not be on the same page, and they still too may struggle. But us who we're not wearing matching shirts, we're not going together on those vacations, or we don't even do birthday parties together, and that's fine.
That's fine. If that's what works for you. Yeah. There's no rule that says you have to hang out with your ex or the families have to do birthdays together. If it works for you, it works for you. I had a previous guest and it worked for them. You're telling me y'all don't do that? That's fine.
Yes. I have friends that do that, and it works perfect for them. And I love it. And I just always say, whatever works for you works for you. There's no right or wrong way.
There's not. I concur. No right or wrong way. And folks, whatever works for you, if you're in this space and you need this assistance, because we're talking about blended families and what works for you. At the end of the show, Umeka is going to tell you how you can purchase her book. But Umeka, as we transition along, going to a professional level, what do you do on a professional level? What's your role? I know you're a wife, you're a mom.
And I work in education. I started out as a teacher. I have been a counselor with our local school district where I was counseling students. This year, I transitioned into counseling our staff. So I am a coordinator of employee wellness. So my piece and just making sure that I take care of myself and I promote to our staff taking care of themselves. That's why I wrote that devotional, because I'm like, you know what? Life is too short. And we learned that in the midst of this pandemic, that any and everything can happen at the drop of a dime. So I make sure that I just provide wellness to our staff to take care of themselves so they can take care of the students within our school district.
Amen. Love it, love it, love it. So you're counseling in your professional world, you're a blogger, you have this family. And so your piece, I'm sure you are a very huge component of self-care.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I tell my husband self-care is sometimes just cutting people off or things off. And so
amen. Woo! That's good.
Yes, that's it.
Yes. Did y'all hear that? Sometimes self-care is cutting things and or people off just for your peace of mind, because there's no price tag you can put on peace.
It's not.
Yes. Wow. So what would you share with some of the listeners and viewers tonight if they're in this space of blended families or they're dating someone that have children? Now, they may or may not have children. That's a whole different dynamic.
It is.
If you don't have children and you are dating someone with children, what are some tips that you would suggest to them to
I
do?
would first say, don't close yourself off to someone with children.
Yes.
Sometimes we do put ourselves in a box and we may miss out. But if you find yourself with someone who have children, or you're already with someone that have children, you have to do what works best for you and your family.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, I always say, be your own blended family goals. You
Mhm.
can't, what we see on social media, or the negative and the positive, it may not work for you. So don't rush it. Like I was trying to rush it, putting that 5 year, like we should be done with this, because although him and we severed those marriages and we were ready, it may
Mhm.
take the kids a little longer to get ready, because at the end of the day, all they know is those are my parents. And then you can ask, I'm a product of a blended family as well. And
Mhm.
you can ask any adult or anybody, they normally want to see their parents together. So
Yes.
it's a transition for that child, and just be understanding and willing to give that kid grace if they're not ready to blend when you think they should be ready to blend. It'll take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so okay, let me ask you this. What do you think about, we talk about blended families and what goes on in your house and your rules. Could it sometimes be friction between the other parent as it relates to disciplinary action?
It most definitely can.
That is one that comes to my mind because some parents may not agree with how you discipline and vice versa. So,
I
yeah.
know for us, we never even talked about how we would discipline the kids, especially with my daughter, my biological daughter being the oldest, and his
Mhm.
biological son being his oldest son. It was just always an unwritten rule or unsaid that I kind of, if physically, because we do believe in spankings, and so if
Yeah.
she needed to be spanked or whooped, I would handle her. He would take care of the son, and it just kind of worked that way.
Okay.
Um, However, I know some parents may not be okay with discipline, but I think that's where it have to be a meeting of the minds, because if that
Mhm.
child is in my household, then we need to discuss some form of discipline. If you don't want them spanked, then when they come back to you, maybe you need to do it, or if you want the dad just to do it, or whoever the
Right.
biological parent is, I think it has to be a conversation. But yeah, everybody in this household got treated the same.
Yeah.
If you want the same, goodies and positive reinforcement, then you're gonna get the same negative reinforcements when you act up over here. And so
Yeah.
that was, if that was even discussed with the biological parents, like, well, no, because when they're in your household, we expect the same thing. At the end
Right.
of the day, we're raising children to grow up to be productive citizens,
Right.
and they still need to be disciplined. If not,
Yeah.
kids are very savvy, and they
Mhm.
will play the two of you together like a fiddle.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? We've talked about that during this series. They will use
Oh my
the
God.
parents against each other. Well, over there, my dad or my mom. No. Well,
And
that's that household.
when the two parents don't talk, it leaves, the kid can say anything. Oh
Yeah.
no, they're not putting lunch money on my account. And then they're going and giving money, and you're like, wait a minute, now you think we sending this kid to school without feeding him? And you're
I
going around
mean,
telling
seriously.
people, yeah, they're not even giving him no money for lunch. And you're running up. No, that's so he can get you to bring lunch. But that happens when the parents do not communicate, because
Amen.
then now you're believing everything that the kid is saying.
Yes, communication, folks, is key. You have to communicate, even though you may not go to dinner or you may not even be BFFs with your the non-custodial parent. I don't say X sometimes. The non-custodial parent. It is imperative to have a discussion, whether that's face to face, a phone call, email, text, whatever form of communication works for you. It's imperative to do so.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, especially when you know that the character of that other parent, that's not their character. And then the child's telling you, oh, they're not doing that. Okay, so you're sitting over here, or you're sitting at school, not eating lunch because I
Right.
didn't. Yeah, that's just an example. But, you
Exactly.
know, wouldn't do that. So it takes communication is key. And I'm loving it because throughout this whole series, Umeka, I've had from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I was so excited for you to come on because I know when you and I talked initially, you told me, you shared some things with me, and I thought, yes, this is perfect. Now, my other guests, they are great friends, and they hang out and all of that good stuff. And I love it.
Yes.
It's good. What works for you? And so it was just great. It's great to have a different perspective and a different dynamic because that's not everyone's story.
Right. Absolutely.
And I have a very diverse audience that watches and listens to the Divorce Talk with Twyla show. So everybody's not in the same cookie cutter.
Yes.
pattern. Yes.
It is different.
Yeah.
With my oldest daughter, because she has a different dad than my son. And my ex-husband, we go to, when we're at the kids' event, we sit together, with his wife, and we're there together. Well, my daughter's father, we wave from across the way.
Different dynamic.
Like, how you doing? In passing, and that's fine. But I believe we all established early on that if nothing else, we just want what's best for the kids, because at the end of the day, the only person that lose in all of this is the kid. If you, even if y'all don't get along, like I tell my friend girl, I say, you save all the negative talk for me and you. Yeah. Not when the kids are around. Because I could think he a bum. But at the end of the day, them kids, that's all they know is that's my daddy,
Exactly.
So I'm gonna keep the bum talk from my homegirls, not.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because folks, listen, what that can do, and 9 times out of 10, it does do, it has a boomerang effect. Absolutely. Because you start bad mouthing the other parent, that child's parent, then they can grow up and have resentment towards you because they're thinking, oh, my parent or mom, dad, whatever the case may be, you've created the picture that they are a bum, but that's not the behaviors that they're showing to the child. And so the child is confused at this point, like what's going on. And so when they get old enough to really understand and see, that could have a boomerang effect on you. And then they resent you or be upset with you because in all essence, it was just because of the bitter feelings that you harbored throughout that divorce or breakup or whatever, right?
Yes. That's it. You're right on with that.
Yeah. So wow. So Umeka, listen, as we wrap up, what words of encouragement you would like to share with our viewers and listeners on tonight? Anything as it relates to blended families, and just give them some tidbits of words of encouragement as we wrap up the show.
Definitely. I would say if you're in a blended family, just allow yourself the time to build your family, know how you want that to look. Don't rush it. And like Twyla said, communication is so important. Sometimes you may have to communicate via text, but just make sure that you're communicating, but not only communicating with the parents, talk to the children as well. We have family meetings where we talk together as a family. We also have a family group text as now we have them off to college and the oldest moved out. That's how we communicate and just build that sense of family, because sometimes you'll have those outside people like, oh, well, that's not your real sister or that's not your real brother. But at the end of the day, you're family. And that's what it is. So I would say just make sure that you keep the outsiders on the outside. Work on your family and don't worry about what anybody else is saying to you or giving you the advice of how you should run your family.
I love it. Keep the outsiders on the outside. That's right. I love that. So, Umeka, how can we contact you? How can the viewers, listeners contact you, purchase your book, all of that good stuff?
Absolutely. Our website is blendedandlovingit.com. And then also on social media, Instagram and Facebook, we're Blended and Loving It also. And then our book you can find on Amazon, as well as the ebook is on Apple Books as well.
Yes. Love it. So Umeka, thank you so very much for being here with me on the show. And you have concluded the Bonus Mom, Bonus Dad series. It has been an amazing series. And it's my hope and prayer, and I believe that something throughout this whole series was said to encourage and inspire anyone and everyone that watched this series, because it's a big deal. Blended families, that happens. People get remarried, and divorce rate is at an all-time high. It's sad, but it's the truth. So thank you all so very much. And as we wrap up, I will tell everyone that next week, my guest, OMG, you do not want to miss this. It's Miss Susan Guthrie. She is a family law attorney. She's the voice you can trust, and she's going to be talking about how to have a non-adversarial divorce. My goodness. Now, divorce does not have to be contentious. 9 times out of 10, it is, but she is going to share some tips, and she's amazing. She's been in the law enforcement. She's been a family law attorney for 32 years. She's a very well-trusted, very reputable attorney. And so tune in next week, folks, and don't miss it. Until next time, this is Coach Twyla, the Get Your Happy Back Divorce Coach. I am out.
What a great show! Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, the Divorce Talk with Twyla show is out.